When NASA has told 5 astronauts to return to the International Space Station after they found shelter in their spacecraft, while 2 Russian crew members carried out repairs on a new air leak. Now, NASA said the service module's transfer tunnels suffered from cracks and leaks, and that it had suffered those leaks for quite some time. Russia's Roscosmos announced that 2 leaks were identified and 1 was repaired. NASA and Roscosmos have been working to determine the root cause of the cracks, but they said there was no threat to the spacecraft's systems. All right, for more, I want to go now to Keith Cowing. He's editor of NASAWatch.com. Keith, good to see you. So we saw astronauts actually preparing for a potential evacuation. How serious was this situation?
It was serious enough that they said, get in your spacecraft and wait and see if it gets any worse. But as I've been asked before, this isn't the first time this has happened, but usually it's their training to do this. The chances that you've had any risk to the astronauts usually come from either a space weather event where you use the space capsule as a radiation shelter, or if something gets really, really close to the space station, they just put them in there just in case. But in this case, they knew something was going on. They went in, they didn't put the spacesuits on. After a couple of hours, they were just, hanging around. They came back out and everything seems to be okay for now. So this is something you practice for, that you design for. It's an elderly spacecraft, so you learn to expect it, but I don't want to say it's routine, but it's a standard thing that happens and you respond to it in a standard way.
Yeah, you say it's an elderly spacecraft. I mean, this leak, from what I've read, it's not new. It dates back years with repeated attempts to patch cracks in the Russian module. Why can't they get this thing fixed for good?
Well, first of all, the service module, I worked on a program in the early 90s, and this thing already existed. It was supposed to be another Russian space station. So it is old. It is beyond its design life, but I've got an old car in my driveway. If you take care of it, you can keep things going, but the maintenance starts to become an issue. The way that this spacecraft works is, while our spacecraft gently dock or berth to the space station, the Soyuz spacecraft hit it like a railroad train, coming together. So over time, everything is stressed. Cracks developed some time back, but they were manageable. And now suddenly the leak rate went up, and that becomes an issue where not only are you losing air that you have to bring up from Earth, but if the structure is failing, other things could follow afterwards, and that could be problematical. So take this all together. They pay a lot more attention to these things than they did before. And I think they're sort of bereft of a real simple answer to it, since we're only going to keep the space station going for another few years. It's old Russian hardware. They don't have the money.
Yeah, and it's been in orbit since 1998. So, yeah, it's certainly not a spring chicken in terms of the age of spacecraft. Let me ask you, before we run out of time, about what the astronauts did today exactly. They moved into what NASA calls a safe haven configuration inside a Crew Dragon capsule. How quickly could they have actually evacuated if they needed to?
A minute. They could have gotten into the spacecraft and closed the hatch. Now, ideally, you want to have your spacesuits on, and it's not as simple as pushing a button and leaving, but it is a very automated spacecraft. But to be in the spacecraft and close the hatch, you are instantly vastly safer than you might have been before. So this is something, again, it's designed to be taken very quickly. And of course, it's the Russian spacecraft on other places. So you have more than one way to get out. They practice for it. But, again, they haven't really ever had to do this, and they really don't want to.
Yeah, let's hope they don't have to do it again. Keith Cowing, always good to talk with you, Keith. Thank you.
My pleasure.